First of all, I'm Steve Sibra, for those of you who know me. You sure as hell should have known better than to attend this. Those who don't know me, you will know better after this is over. No, I want to thank you all for being here. I really want to thank Craig and Roberta for hosting this, and they have done it in the past too, and still they come back and do it again. So I really appreciate that. I truly appreciate all of you being here, and I hope you aren't too disappointed, and keep in mind that there will be a break, and you can get the hell out of here when it's halfway over. It's okay. So that's the first thing I'm going to start with is a question. How many people had Mrs. Gladys Amon as a teacher in grade school? Here. Okay. All right. The first piece I'm reading is just a very short little story. It's about Mrs. Amon. Mrs. Amon, I had her for 5th grade, and she intimidated the hell out of me. She was very stern and very business about. She had a stare. She would look at you, and you would, whatever you were doing that was wrong would go away. But she lived two doors down from me, and I was confused, because when I'd see her out of school, she was this nice lady who was out working in her garden, and she would smile at me and everything. But when I'd see her in school, it was like, uh-oh. So I wrote this recently, just in like 5 minutes. It's called Heels. She knew who she was. She was a jet black bird in a sky filled with words. Morning came like the burning of a bad memory. Her dreams at night were always so small, her dreams in the light so very much more expansive. Barely 5 feet until she donned the heels, picking up her shoulders inside the smart jacket. Her form became hard and square. She was not to be trifled with. Gladys applied her makeup like war paint. At the school, the children gave her sideways glances. She came down the hall like a somber and imposing parade, like the soldiers drilling incessantly in the town square. Her hair stood up in a stark bun, adding 4 more inches. Most 5th graders were not so very tall, after all. This event is going to be a mixture of poetry and short stories. So I don't know. I guess it's going to be a mixture of poetry and short story. This poem, because I did come from a farm, sometimes I write stuff about farming, was published in a literary magazine called the Flint Hills Review out of Kansas a few years ago. If you want to get your farm poetry published, you send it to somebody in Kansas. This is called The Lovesick Farmer. Each day he pulls on boots, crawls under his old hat, slides tired shoulders into a worn coat, pedals his bicycle from the farmhouse to the shed where the old tractor waits for a shot of ether and a turn of the crank. His tractor is obsolete, Minneapolis Moline with a hand clutch. It only pulls 18 feet and has trouble on side hills. Other farmers mock him for equipment shortcomings. Get rid of that thing. Nobody farms with a yellow tractor these days. The lovesick farmer will never betray his sweet Molly, his wife of the fields, his lover atop the patient soil. His bride of flesh and bone, she's a long ways gone now, he says. She fell dead that year when the weevils came, like a cloud that ate holes in the sun. When they were young and in love, the farmer courted his gal in that old blonde tractor. They drove to the outdoor picture shows and drug a rake in the road ditch at night to badger the raccoons. On warm summer nights, you will find him by the field's edge, diesel motor idling in the wind. The lovesick farmer stands as a tear crops up. He throws silver crescent wrenches at the unforgiving moon. The ghosts of the good years are sleeping there, he tells the old tractor, as if knowing truth changes truth or hides time neath the turn of a wheel. This poem is from my book, Shoes for Baby. This is one of my favorite poems from the book. It's called I Forgot You. I forgot your existence. I was in the basement of my soul, working with my hands, holding things of small and large consequence, unmindful of things too large, too small to fit those hands. You are too large to fit in my hands, and too small to fit in them as well. You are buried so deep in an ocean of emotion, I cannot reach down, pull you back to surface. You are a pair of wings, so tiny, so distant into the realm of stars. Gray clouds stifled by tears, weave beneath your bare feet. You are naked to me always, invisible behind curtains made of some other season on some other world. I forget you, as if you were my breath moving in and out, as if you were a gentle heartbeat, the way salt forgets pepper's gentle nip. I forget you as life and death forget time, as the sun forgets its own shine. My dad was Dana Sibra. When we were working in the garage, he'd have a short piece of rope, and he was all trying to teach me how to tie knots. He'd be walking around and he'd say, well, this is how you do this, and he'd loop stuff. I was like a magician, he'd do it real quick, and I couldn't have cared less. I didn't pay any attention to what he was trying to teach me. I just wanted to get done with what the hell we were doing so I could go do whatever it was. But this poem is reminiscent of that. Sheepshank versus the trucker's hitch. There are 3 ways to go: over, under, across the center knot. It all starts with the slip. Watch your master's hands as he executes the twists and turns. Motions smooth, too quiet, too quick to follow. Blacksmith hammer on the anvil. If you don't pick it up today, tomorrow brings another task. New loads to secure. Checkerboard moves made, no shades of gray. Battles won, fortunes lost. Breathe deep. Clear your mind. Begin again. Thank you. This is the first of these stories. I wrote this on New Year's Eve, the first version of it 5 years ago or something, and I messed with it. I finally recently had it accepted for publication. It's kind of long, so I hope you get a kick out of it. This poem is dedicated to Jeff. This story, I'm sorry. It's called Wailing Guitar. I was barely 13 when my big brother Jimmy came home from school with a wailing guitar. We were 2 kids caught up in an ongoing dispute between our parents over things we could not really understand, and we feared they were going to split up, and we would become casualties of a broken home. As a byproduct of this trauma, the 2 of us had bonded over a budding and mutual love for rock music. Somehow, our mutual interests in rock guitar music had given us something to hang on to, as our parents became more and more involved in petty bickering and outright bursts of anger. I heard Jimmy come through the front door, and then there was a loud burst of guitar music. My mother, cooking dinner in the kitchen, began to scream at the top of her lungs, attempting to be heard. "Jimmy, what are you doing? Are you okay?" I was upstairs in my room. The entire house seemed to be shaking. I started down the stairs. The good dinner china was rattling in the cupboard like a rhythm section. "Jimmy, whatever is going on, make it stop. Your father will be home from work any minute, and you know he will blow his top over this." From the top of the stairs, I could see Jimmy in the middle of the living room floor, sitting atop a guitar case. From the case came the signature riff of the Black Sabbath song, "Sweet Leaf." The volume level was blistering. Before Jimmy had shown up, I could hear my mother's radio in the kitchen playing some Benny Goodman number. Those notes had disappeared as if chaff in the wind. About the time I hit the bottom of the stairs, my mother emerged and entered the living room from the kitchen. I had a big grin on my face, but the scowl I got from my mom sobered me, reminding me of the tense atmosphere we were all living in. I had not seen such a look from her since the incident involving the snapping turtle in the toilet bowl. The music from the guitar case abruptly changed to the repetitive opening phrases of Aerosmith's "Walk This Way," as if it were daring my mom to try and interfere. My mother was wringing her hands in her balled-up apron. "Jimmy, make it stop. Your father..." My brother and I did not know what the problem was with our parents. In recent months, their relationship just seemed to be unraveling. They constantly accused each other of breaking up our once happy home. My father had a horrible temper, and that was a big part of the problem. I did not tell Jimmy, but I was terrified I would end up with Dad if there was a split. I could not imagine anything worse. Sure enough, at that moment, my father's car pulled into the drive. Cheap Trick was blasting from the case. I caught myself wanting to move with the music. My dad worked in a foundry. He was a hands-on, take-charge type of person, not known for his patience. He was cussing a blue streak by the time he got the front door open. "Miriam, what the Billy goddamn hell is going on in here?" He threw his lunchbox on the floor and peeled off his jacket like he was getting ready for a back alley brawl. My mother's face was an ocean of despair. "It's Jimmy," she shouted. "Your son brought this thing home from school and into our lives. I cannot imagine what he was thinking." She turned her face away as if she could not bear the sight in front of her, then retreated to the kitchen. Her dramatics had contributed to the rift between her and my father. His face red, my dad turned to his oldest son. "Jimmy, I don't know what you are up to, but make that damned racket stop. Right this minute. First you bring home a damn turtle and have it living in the toilet. And now, what the hell is going on here anyway?" Jimmy just stared at my father. "I said make it stop," my dad erupted. Jimmy's reply was a shrug, followed by a simple, "It's a wailing guitar, Dad." Dad's short fuse was down to a stub. "I don't give a good goddamn if it's Ethel Merman with a red-hot poker stabbed in her ass," he yelled. "Put a stop to this ruckus or else I will." "It wasn't doing anything when I checked it out from the music room at school." My dad stared at him for a moment, then turned and stomped out the front door. In less than a minute, he had returned from the garage, brandishing an aluminum baseball bat. After a couple of practice swings, he advanced on the guitar case. "Open it," he commanded, The bat perched on his shoulder, his biceps bulging. My brother Jimmy looked doubtful. "Open the goddamn case, now!" my father roared. Jimmy reached over and flipped the latch. The guitar was playing an inspired version of the intro to Stevie Ray Vaughan's Scuttle Button, repeating the frantic notes over and over. When the lid opened, the volume tripled. As if aware of my dad, the wailing guitar changed its tune. My father pulled back the bat to deliver a blow, but he was slammed by a Jimi Hendrix shockwave of distorted feedback. The force was too much. My father stumbled backward and fell to the floor. I was holding my ears. I glanced at Jimmy. His face was blank. Grimacing, my father managed to reach out with the end of the bat and poke at the case until the lid fell shut. The volume, though greatly reduced, was still penetrating. I noticed a tiny trickle of blood from my dad's right ear. However, at that point, I was beside myself with excitement. As soon as the case had opened, my attention had refocused. As noted, I had become a big fan of guitars and wanted to learn to play. Jimmy had started some lessons at school. I often played his old records, listening closely to all the different styles of the serious rockers, from Slash to Angus Young. Ever since Jimmy had arrived home, I had been pondering the fact that there was no sign of any amplification, and yet the guitar was cranking like a stadium concert was taking place. My random thoughts over this fell away when that guitar case opened. My heart nearly stopped. I could hardly believe my eyes. After the case had closed again, I ran to Jimmy's side, ignoring my father's predicament. "Did you see that?" I screamed. "A Fender Stratocaster with the sun pearl finish. Those are impossible to find." My brother said, "Of course I saw it. I was the one who checked it out at school. It just showed up today from somewhere. But are you sure it isn't a Telecaster? It has that country twang to it at times." "No way. The Telecaster never came with the Surf Pearl," I replied. There was no time to continue the debate. A blood-curdling howl came from the kitchen, and we all turned to see my mother rushing into the room, a large pot filled with boiling water in her hands. "Die, you horrible six-stringed home wrecker," she shrieked, and threw the water on the guitar case. Jimmy stepped back. I dove for cover, but my father was still on the floor, and some of it splashed on him. His foul curses joined with the general wall of sound, and for just a moment I thought I heard a few notes of the Elvis staple, Burnin' Love. The wailing guitar then segued into Zappa and the Mothers, and I recognized the bridge from "My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama," the third track on side 2 of the LP Weasels Ripped My Flesh. When my father recovered, he bellowed, "Get that fucking thing into the trunk of my car right now." He did not specify how this was to be carried out. In the end, we pulled it from the case and wrapped the squalling Fender Strat in a heavy throw rug, which lessened the racket only slightly. It was spewing tremolo, and the effect was head-splitting. As the nosy neighbors looked on, we carried the thing to the car and stuffed it in the trunk. It was now dusk, soon to be dark. I want to take just a drink of water here. My mouth is really dry. Excuse me. I know the suspense is killing everyone. If I was Eddie Vedder, that would have been wine. Okay, everyone got in Dad's big Chrysler sedan, and we headed out, wrapping the guitar in the rug and stashing it into the trunk. I felt like we were dealing with a dead body in some television crime show. I tried to guess where my father was headed. My mother was busy throwing guilt on him over the unexpected change of events. "Leave it to you, Roger," she said, "to instill insubordination into our children with your temper tantrums and other endless examples of bad behavior." My father kept his eyes on the traffic, but peeled his lips back into a sneer. "Oh, is that right?" he snarled. "If it were up to you, Miriam, there would be zero discipline in this house ever." My mother's response was as calm as it was snide. "This is not a house," she said. "It's a Chrysler Imperial." My father drove us to the big bridge over the East River. There was a pullout in the middle of the bridge for emergency stops. "If this is not an emergency, then I don't know what the hell is," my father declared as he swerved into the spot. I got out with my dad, and we opened the trunk. My brother lagged back. "Jimmy," my father yelled, "get out here." My brother came with us to the edge, but still stood a few feet away. Then, to everyone's surprise, my mother also appeared at the edge of the bridge. "I don't know how this all happened," she said, "but it looks like it's a family problem now." We positioned the guitar on the rail that was over, and then overbalanced it, and off the high bridge it soared. As the Stratocaster tumbled through the air in the dark, I could make out Jeff Beck's powerful lead guitar strain on the Yardbirds hit, "Over, Under, Sideways, Down." There was too much night in the sky to see it hit the water, but we heard the splash, then listened as it floated downstream, the notes growing fainter. I turned to Jimmy. "Hear that?" "Yes." His voice was almost a whisper. "Clapton." Not much was said as we headed back into town, but somehow it seemed like once the wailing guitar was cast into the void, the anger and resentment in my parents had dissipated. My mother said, with more sadness than anger in her voice, "Dinner was ruined. That was the bean water I threw on that awful thing." My father glanced over at her and then the look on his face softened. "We'll stop," he grunted. "Get some burgers." My brother sat silent with me in the back seat. He had an odd expression on his face. I reached over and nudged him. "What are you thinking?" I asked. Whoops. "What are you thinking?" I asked. Jimmy looked at me, then tilted his head back toward the river. "What if we have not heard the last of the wailing guitar?" I thought for a moment. "You're right," I said. "That was just a killer performance, and a show that strong, it's not rock and roll without an encore. What will we do if it somehow comes back?" In the front seat, my mom and dad sat humming along with some old big band music on the radio. Jimmy looked at me and nodded in their direction. I had not seen them do anything together for so long it was a true surprise. "If somehow we see it again, I guess we will just try to deal with it, with whatever comes with it, as a family," Jimmy said. I put my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. I reached into my pants pocket. My fingers touched the guitar pick, which I had snatched up from the carpet in the living room as we were wrapping the guitar inside the rug. I thought I could feel it vibrating at the touch of my thumb and index finger. A feeling like electricity coursed through my veins. "We will just keep on rocking in a free world," I said, surprising myself. My voice was almost imperceptible, like the fade-out notes on Sgt. Pepper's A Day in the Life. But Jimmy heard me and smiled. "Amen," he pronounced. Thank you very much.
That drum's up in the attic.
That was kind of long. There's just a couple other things and we'll have a break here, so.
Make the house shake. But I wouldn't.
This is called Power to the People.
And he would, but I let it.
God gave us the poles that His Word might flow like electricity into our brains, unless I am wrong. God took the hair from our heads and wrote black symbols on our pale skin to identify the strength in each of us, unless I am mistaken. God lifts us up under copper skies like babies in the birthing pan, like newborn cells on the skin of a wise and venerable reptile whose bite inoculates us with God, unless I have been deceived. God wants us all to die so that we may live, so that He may live and thrive within us. God wants us to suffer 1,000 times so we may be saved and sit next to His throne in heaven, and our eyes grow blind and our ears hear nothing. We shall sit in ecstasy and contentment, and we shall serve Him, and any pain we feel will be like proof of blessings unto God. Unless God is not who He says He is, unless I am not what He says I am, unless God left the door ajar and someone else crept in. Plastic cup. Get me a guy who plays a slide guitar. I don't even know what that is, but I know it's what I need to go too far. I hear that sound when I fall asleep. I dream of a sky made of mirrors. All I need is a little white plastic cup. Best bottle of scotch you got. My clothes are wrinkled, but I can take it standing up. Room temperature's fine, or even drink it hot. Everything I cherish in life came from some garage with a sale. I keep searching for a nice sheepdog to bust me loose from this sheep jail. I will never stop dreaming of a hotel room with flowers growing up from a dirt floor. I want to wallow like a beetle, crawl wall to wall, don't have a clue why, but I know what for. Just two more. This is called Breakfast. Late tonight, I will be meeting you for breakfast, served on ice-cold plates. Broken food left over from the dawn, we will eat with our heads down, clinking of the silver, our only sound. I will pull up my socks until over my head. I will brush the crumbs off your chest. You will make a few tiny noises to tell me something I won't understand, but I will realize it's all there is left. I can't really see you through the clouds floating in your eyes. It looks like rain outside. The dogs are digging holes under the sycamore trees. We only breathe by force of habit, fearing and hoping blue skies will rise and it will happen again. Thank you very much. This is the last poem of the first section, and it's I wrote this poem specifically for this event, and you'll soon see why. It's called A Poem of Mediocrity. This is a poem of honesty, written not to impress or to imply intellect, integrity, or a spirit of reciprocity. This poem is not all that good, not great. In fact, it might be bad, the worst poem you have ever heard. This poem might be better if I read it while eating a bologna sandwich, chewing and eschewing my way through muddled, garbled words and phrases, thoughts dribbling out like pickle juice, running off my chin into the lap of indulgence, marginally self-aware and going completely nowhere. You could grow tired of listening to such drivel. Perhaps it dries your throat or stings your ears. You could reason life would be better with less of this and maybe instead a couple of beers. Just across the alley and the parking lot sits Pep's Bar. 90 seconds perhaps to stumble over there, quench the thirst, use the can, wash your hands. Listen to the real poetry of folks who sit and stand. Could it be any worse? Worse than this crap? Going nowhere? I am learning nothing here. What good is a poem anyway? Truth be told, it's nothing more than open air filled with words, not the most profound or brilliant I have heard. This Sibra guy, truth is, he's talking shit. How much longer do I sit and put up with this? It's absurd. But on the other hand, it might be better than TV, maybe. Or just listen to the incessant wind outside as it continues to blow, whether in dry gusts of summer or winter's driven snow. Hell, who is to say? I guess if somebody goes to the effort to write something down, I've already driven 25 miles into town. Might be against better judgment, but I might stay for one or two more. The beer will just get colder. Josh's pizza will still be there. It's been a long day. Maybe give a little more time. This goofball might think of something worth hearing to say. Thank you. This is called Walk This Way. I lived with my father in a shoddy little trailer park. I guess she and her mom lived in a different little dump. My dad and I never went to where she lived. She and her mom always came to us. Our parents were hooking up, but we were small and we didn't understand or know what it was or what to call it. For us, it was like two cats rubbing up against one another and purring and licking. To us, they were a pair of kitty cats. We did this thing. She stood in front of me, and I would stand up close behind her, real close. I would reach forward. And turn out the light switch. I would reach forward and put my hands in the pockets on the sides of her shorts. She would reach back. Our arms would cross one another. She would put her hands in my pants pockets. She was a little bit taller than I was. With one hand Jesus, what am I doing? With our hands in one another's pockets, we walked, my toes to her heels. Step by step, we walked around the house and out in the yard. It seemed like my dad made her mom happy and vice versa, but not all the time. Once in a while, they would fight and they would yell at each other and say mean things. She and I would look each other in the eye, and without a word, we would get into position, her in front and me pressed up hard against her from behind, both of us with our hands in each other's pockets. We almost never spoke when we were doing this. On happy days, we would laugh or maybe even sing. On those bad days, we were quiet, almost grim. One of us might even cry, just a little bit. If she was crying, I would lean forward and put my forehead on her shoulder. On those days, we were like a station wagon hitched up to a mobile home, and we would pull out of the parking area and out of the trailer park. We would fly down the highway together, and we would float up off the ground and soar as if we were magic, as if we were flying carpets in the sky. We would walk 1,000 miles an hour, and we would circle the world on those days. Wayne Scott Brown built a pine board house, locked his woman inside, burned it screaming to the ground, beat his paw till death drew near over a 10-cent swallow of piss-warm beer. Such a man was Wayne Scott Brown. Stuck his hand in a hive, held a fistful of stinging hell, squeezed until only one left alive, bit off its head, ate a mouthful of the angry dead, chased it down with a heel of dry black bread, or so they said of Wayne Scott Brown. 6 bold men, blacksmith hammers and bars, caught him one night by the tracks, smashing glass in abandoned cars, held his neck to the rail, beat his brains into mush, such an awful sound, let the train drag his guts clear to town, paint the ground with the stain name of Wayne Scott Brown. Troubadour. Inside my song, I was private, a little beast. Outside myself, a child of the world. I never wanted to be a person, and I never really was. Not that time, not that place. I wore the words written on me, carved into my bones. They stabbed out through my skin, my flesh. I was nothing then but skin and bones. It's a terrible thing to have a voice inside your body which cannot escape. You don't want it to come out because if it does, it won't be you anymore. So you drink or you smoke and you know there is nothing to be done except die. Die with it hanging like soap around your neck. Die with it washing you from the inside out. I was never so dirty as when I came clean. I don't know where I am. I don't know what is inside me now. Wherever it is, wherever this is, it is not right. Time for me to go. I want to go now. I need to be gone right now.
Whoop!
I wrote this for a Scottish friend of mine. There's a Scottish tradition involving getting married over an anvil. This is called Above the Anvil. We met in Gretna Green. Blacksmith tied our knot. Fabled anvil in a sacred spot. Years have changed our names. Faces are lined with silver. It's a boost to reach the top shelf. Mind over matter does not matter much at all. In my brain, I am still a child, let out to pasture in the wild. I claim to do as I please, when I please, but we all know rules have changed to rule us. Over and out these days does not matter much at all. There are times I need to hold a hand, cannot depend on me. I am both friend and foe, my own worst and weakest enemy. All the while, a strength I sometimes feel but never see. As the room fills with my darkness, have no choice but to let it be. Say what you will, I am still here. Does not matter much at all. Thank you. This is a story I read last summer at my 50th high school reunion here in town. There are some people here who will be suffering through this for the second time, unless they've already left. But it seems fitting for a rural community to endure something of this sort. It's called If the Chicken Has Lips. When I was a junior down at the high school, I started dating a chicken. I know that sounds bad, but really it wasn't. I had dated a few human girls over my sophomore years, both of them, and it was, in the best of times, uneventful. Once I decided to go the poultry route, things turned around and the level of excitement and adventure went way up. I broke the news to Bernie, the gal I had been seeing semi-regular. She was sucking on a grape Tootsie Pop when I told her, and she drooled all over her plaid shirt. "You say you are a what now? Going skating with my sister? Which one?" Bernie had a lot of wax buildup and didn't always hear so well. "No," I said, "not skating, dating. And not your sister, your chicken. I mean a chicken, not yours." Bernie's real name was Bernadette, which I thought was a nice feminine name, but she had to go and change it into a man's name. I was not into anything kinky at all, and I could not get used to trying to kiss a gal with a man's name. The chicken that turned my head was named Henrietta, and nobody ever called her Henry or anything like that. She roosted down the road a piece at Farmer Hootie's coop. Hootie was a straight shooter, and he not only had the best laying hens in the county, but he kept the drop boards spotless. The whole operation smelled like the south of France in the springtime, and he actually had city folks come by and want to take pictures posing with his girls. If you were looking for the best chicken flesh around, your search started and ended at the Hootie coop. After Henrietta caught my eye, I wanted to court her proper, and that meant getting the blessing of Farmer Hootie. Several times I stopped at the farm to visit with Hootie, and generally I took him a token of country neighborliness, such as a jar of freshly rendered hog fat. By the by, I would meander over to Henrietta's coop and pay a visit. She was always so proper and shy, but she had a way of giving me a bit of a sideways look that told me there was an interest. As we moved on into the summer months, I eventually asked Hootie if I might take her for a drive with me into town. He got a big grin on his face and said as long as I kept his pantry stocked with the top-notch lard, I was welcome to stop any time and take her out for a spin. I took her in her crate so as not to appear to be too forward and pushy in our relationship. We stopped at the Dairy Hole drive-in and got a couple of orders of French fries. I thought it would be bad form to order the chicken strips. I wanted her to see that I was a proper gentleman with honorable intention. She only pecked at the fries, but seemed satisfied with the arrangement. I carried her crate into Elmer's, the local night spot, where the music was always playing, unless the jukebox was busted. We sat at the bar, her crate on the stool next to me, and as I drank my draft beer and she sipped dainty-like at the thimble of tap water, we spent a nice quiet hour of social-type parley. As luck would have it, Bernie, my ex, was there with her date for the evening, Gooseneck Olson. Or else maybe it was Squatrant Olson. They were twins, and I could never tell them apart in the summertime. In the winter, Squatrant's nose was always running more than his brother's. Bernie saw Henrietta and I at the bar. I was talking to Snub-Nosed Pete, who was sitting on the stool to my right, Henrietta on the one to my other right. Snub-Nose actually did not have a nose at all, having had it bit off in a bar fight over ownership of a Desert brand canvas water bag that had been turned into the bar's lost and found. Old Snub was just another person around town who had a drainage problem, and he kind of gurgled when he laughed, but I had known him since my second year of third grade. We had once had a dust-up over a minor thing or two, but we talked it out, and now we always found something to be pleasant about. Anyway, Bernie comes over with half of a big hunk bar sticking out of her mouth and a half-eaten bag of nibs in her hand. She stuck a nib through the bars of Henrietta's crate and said something like, "You want a bite, honey? Oh, oops, my mistake. I forgot. You ain't got no goddamn teeth in that narrow head of yours." And then she half snorted, half laughed, and ended up falling down gagging on the big hunk. I got up, picked up the chicken crate, and Henrietta and I left right in the middle of it all. It was kind of disgraceful, is the fact of the matter. I drove the pickup truck out by the edge of Caesar's Pond, and we sat for a few minutes together, looking out the windshield at the black smoke from the oil refinery as it billowed up into the black cloud that lined the black sooty sky in the distance. You could hear the big greasy water bugs clicking in the nearby sewer lagoon, and a couple lighted on the hood. They sounded like somebody dropped a number 3 carriage bolt from a tall ladder when they hit. I felt kind of amorous, but I did not want to push it on the first date, so I just reached my hand inside the crate and stroked Henrietta's feathers for a bit, and she gave me a couple of little pecks on the knuckle. It was before midnight when I dropped her off at Hootie's coop. She uttered a couple of soft clucks and a coo, and so I opened the crate door and she ran into her comfortable little home. I wanted to give the girl some space, and I waited for a whole 2 weeks hoping to hear from her or have a message relayed from Farmer Hootie. But to my dismay, I did not hear a peep. The following Monday, after the second weekend with no message, I stopped to see Hootie at his farm. He was out by the woodshed with an axe in his hand, and he had been splitting some small logs into kindling. He had on bib overalls with immense rings of sweat under his arms. Hootie put on a big smile as he saw me pull my old Dodge Power Wagon to a stop, about halfway between where he was chopping and the coop. I could not help but get excited at being so near to Henrietta. I exchanged a few pleasantries with Hootie and handed him another container filled with top-shelf hog lard. His face beamed with pleasure. "By the way," I said, trying to play it cool, "if you don't mind so much, I would sure like to check in with Henrietta." Farmer Hootie kept a smile on his face, but he looked down at his feet and said, "Well, I am sorry to say I can't help you with that today, son." I stood for a minute expecting for him to have something more to say, but when that appeared to be it, I decided to press this topic just a mite. Is she feeling poorly?" I asked. Hootie picked up his head and looked at me just for a second. "Well now, young feller, she's not here. She's gone." "Gone? Gone where to?" Hootie scratched in the dirt with his boot. "Damn it, son. You know, you shouldn't oughta not have talked to me. After you brought her home 2 weeks ago and we didn't hear nothing from you, well, I got the impression you was done with her, you know, had gotten all of your business taken care of." I was not really liking the way our conversation was headed. "Well now, Mr. Hootie, I was just not wanting to crowd the little lady, you know. I was kind of hoping she would reach out to me." Hootie got a somewhat exasperated look on his face. "And how might she do that?" On her cell phone, I suppose? His eyes were dark, and I was starting to lose my patience. Listen, I demand that you tell me where she went to, I said, raising my voice. The old man chuckled and rubbed his big round belly. Well, okay then, since you are making demands, I will tell you that a good part of her is right here. He patted firmly on his gut. I could feel my eyes open a mile wide. What's more, he went on, some of her left the premises with them two Olsen twins, Gooseneck and what is the name of that other one with a snot on his face, Squaw or something. Trant, I said. I felt like my face was glowing beet red. Now, let me get this straight. You don't see nothing of me for 2 weeks, and at that point, you got some jar-headed Giesenslaw type neighbors show up round about dinner time, so you just decide that you are going to cook and eat my girlfriend. Is that the plan? Is that the plan you come up with? Is that about it then? I was pretty sure I was about to clobber old Hootie right there on the spot. I could not believe what I was hearing. But I also noticed that Hootie still had that axe in his hand, so I told myself I had best take some deep breaths. We continued to talk about the whole business, and as I watched him flipping and spinning that axe around and up and down like it was some kind of a ninja stick from some movie, I did eventually become more understanding of his point. A fella has got to eat, it's true. I told him, though, that I was having a mighty hard time getting the image of it all out of my mind. I just can't stop seeing you with her, I said. You taking her out back of the brooder house and her soft body like putty in your grip, your hands all over her and even up inside, and then you just start plucking at her harder and faster, and it's... I was gasping for air. Now simmer down there, young feller, he said in a soothing voice. It was nothing like that at all, and you have got to stop dwelling on it. What is done, and that is all there is to it. He said he was right sorry for it, and sorry that I had the image in my mind. He told me even though she had not been much of a laying hen, her flesh was top-notch. And then he said he had something he wanted me to have, sort of so I could remember her fondly. And I was not so sure, but I thought on it, and finally, in the end, we shook hands. Now I am back together with Bernie, only I have made it clear to her that I was going to call her, I was going to call her by her proper name, and she was going to have to be okay with it, or else. And I said she was to cut down on all the sweets and all the slobbering. If she wants to be involved with somebody and have drooling and snot and whatever, well, then them Olsen boys was the place for her, for that sort of thing. She pouted a bit, but in the end she said okay to my demands. And we are doing okay, if not great. Bernadette, did put her foot down, though, when it came to my memento from my days with Henrietta. The first time she caught me wearing the necklace that I had made, she really threw a fit. Farmer Hootie had given me Henrietta's skeletal remains, or most of them, and I had fashioned them into a piece of jewelry. I found it both tasteful and attractive, but beauty is in the eye of the one who beholds, as they say. Bernie, in particular, was upset by the wishbone mounted right in the front, framing my Adam's apple. I may not be as picky as some, she said, and she looked me square in the eye, but I am not the kind of gal who is going to get caught making whoopee with a fella who has got the drumstick bones of his previous girlfriend hanging from a string around his neck. It is just flat out too creepy for words. I had to admit that Bernadette had made a real good point, and so we shook on it and celebrated our union by splitting a package of nibs and washing them down with a slug from old Snub-Nose's canvas water bag. I started writing that story one night, probably late, and I wrote about the first page, and then I was like, Jesus, am I really writing this? So I stopped, and I talked to some of my other friends who were writers, and 2 or 3 of them, and they were all university. They said, no, you have to finish this. You have to finish it. And I said, but who would publish this? But I finished it, and it was published, so they were right. But there was a crisis of something for me after I wrote the first part of it. I thought, where am I going with this? This appeared in a publication called Stone Circle Review. The name of it is My Parents as Holes in the Earth. Up to the moment of his death, my father was breathing. He was pumping air in and out, even when sleeping. My mother had a touch. She had otters in her eyes. They swam in oceans of blue. Years now they have been elsewhere, someplace beneath themselves, going about the business of worms, forgotten by all but plants and thorns. As they dry and go to seed, as dirt fills in the spaces which at one point were lives, laughter, movement, wisdom. Others like me have been above, still filtering the air, still moistening an atmosphere no longer of use to anyone, no longer drenching a universe with meaning, no longer feeding the dog at 4:30 every afternoon, whether he shows up to eat it or not. I have one more poem and then a short piece to read, and then I want to ask you guys something after I do that. This poem is called Lapse of Luxury, and it kind of combines some experiences I had in Big Sandy and some experiences that a writer friend of mine had when he was a kid, and then the rest of it is just flotsam and jetsam. This is called Lapse of Luxury. As red ants ate my lungs, I thought back to long-lost friends, mining sapphires in Ecuador, minding my own business for me. A length of rope in a hardware store, my reflection in the blade of a brand new shovel. Before hate wore out the soles of my shoes trying to walk itself into fields of love. My final thought, a dog named Mitzi, sharing an ice cream cone in Montana heat. First I had a lick, then her, then me again. Dog with a cold cone in her belly, lapping my last laugh. This little piece, somehow this was inspired by my father and by Keith Edwards, and I'm not sure why, I'm not sure what connects to either of them, but it's called The Meadowlark. My father was crippled by arthritis in his old age. His neck and shoulders were bent, and he walked with difficulty, looking mostly at the ground. He could not see so very far, but he was intent on listening to the world around him. Hearing the footsteps of his final days approaching, hearing the crunch of hard gravel in a different tone, my father started to say things like, "The dying time is coming." He did not seem to lament. There was no whimpering, no late night calling in favors from a God he had mostly ignored, just a flat statement like his own personal truth. One night I saw him getting all the heavy coats he could find. He moved slow like a glacier of tired flesh. He brought piles of winter clothes into his bedroom, all shapes, all styles. Corduroy, leather, wool, anything with heft. Some of it stunk with 50 years of dust. There was a ratty old fur my mother used to wear, not with a trophy, like a trophy, but simply for its warmth. Was gone, but we still had her skin. It was late July. He crawled into bed, pulled piles of years on top of himself. He looked like a garbage scow. I couldn't really see him at all, just a flinching pile of family history. "What the hell are you?" I started, but a frail arm appeared and waved me silent. "Go away," he said. "Go about your business. I raised you to be a man, gave you all I had, good and bad." After a minute, he said, "I can hear the meadowlark. When the meadowlark is done with her song, I will be on my way." Next morning, I checked beneath the pile. He was right. The meadowlark was silent. I sat on the front porch for a spell, morning sun on my shoulders. I looked at the Missouri breaks to the distant south. Inside, the pile of coats surrounded him, his body splitting the heap like the jagged blades of river and ice had cleaved the earth along my southern horizon. From the power pole behind me, I heard the Montana state bird as she began to loosen her voice. I wondered if a river could ever stop running, if it might be still, go easy on itself. I wondered if ancient water could learn to rest. Thank you very much. I have one other piece that I'd really like to read. I've kept you guys here a long time. It's about 7 minutes. If anybody doesn't want to put up with it, I'll understand. But I do want to say, the thing about homecoming in a town like this is the length of your friendship with people, and you don't find that in other places. You don't get that in big city. People don't understand what it's like. I'm 69 years old, and my best friend since first grade is here. You don't get that in those places. This piece is about him and about our friendship, and it's mostly fiction. Some of it's fact, but I think you'll figure out what it's about pretty soon. It's called, thank you all for staying, it's called Working Them to the Bone. During summer vacation before 5th grade, my best friend ran his left hand through a meat grinder in the butcher shop on their family farm. Later, when he told me about it, he said the machinery had hypnotized him. He ran the 3 middle fingers clear through the grinding blades. He had no recollection of putting his hand in the grinder, but he damn sure remembered taking it out. Right after this happened, I became obsessed with the ground-up fingers. We were, and still are, good friends, and I don't know if I was mourning them or what it was. I could not stop thinking about them. One of the first things I asked him was, what happened to the ground-up fingers? He said he really didn't know because he wasn't around when they cleaned out the grinder afterwards. Those finger bones have been with me one way or another ever since. The bones first showed up in the silverware drawer in our farmhouse. My mother swore to me they were not there. My assertions and her denials became a familiar refrain. Those bones began to dog me like a suspended sentence on a shoplifting arrest. Both my friend and I played in the school band. John played the trumpet. He had planned to learn the saxophone, but with the fingers gone, he couldn't manage all the valves. I was a trombone enthusiast, at least until his finger bones showed up in my trombone case. I continued to play in band, but my heart was not in it. Sometimes the little fragments would show up in my hair when I brushed it in the morning, or in the cereal bowl at breakfast. I found some of them in my sneakers when I went to put them on one day, and they felt really big as I slid my toes in. I kept asking John about the bones. Where are they really? I would ask. He kept telling me he didn't know, that they were destroyed, they were thrown out, they had been buried. I became more and more insistent. My friend eventually started to get tired of me asking about his finger bones. How many pieces were the finger bones ground into? Was it like bone dust? Because when I find them, they are pretty good sized pieces, I said to him. We were in high school by then and playing in the pep band at a basketball game. He turned to look me in the eye. He was holding the trumpet in his left hand with his thumb and little finger hooked around the instrument so that he wouldn't drop it. Look, man, he said. I saw the weariness in his eyes. You keep asking me about the damn bones. I told you they are gone. They don't exist. Once in a while, he continued, looking at his hand, once in a great while they still itch. I can feel the missing fingers itching, and they're not there. They're nowhere. It's just empty air. But I swear to God, I can feel them. It's the mind playing tricks. I feel them walking on my head sometimes when I'm trying to sleep at night, I told him. Sometime after that, he politely but firmly asked me to not bug him about the fingers anymore. I'm serious. You have to let this thing go. I insist, he said, and his eyes looked even more weary than they were before. I do my best to not bring it up. We are still close friends, but I don't run into him all that often. He has had a successful career in politics on the national level, and you will see him on TV holding up his hands and displaying the emptiness where the fingers should be. But for me, they are still everywhere. I saw them on a birthday cake like shattered little candles stubs waiting to be lit on fire. Last year, one hopped off a lady's ear while I was standing next to her at a bus stop. I screamed a little bit that time as it landed right on my shoulder. They always show up in my pants pocket when I reach in to get some change or car keys. I don't know how much more I can take because I know what they want. They are trying to get into my mouth, into my digestive system. If they do, they will take root. They will sprout and grow. I am sure the idea is to take me over and create a whole different person on the inside of me. They won't be happy with being in this body. I know, because I am not so happy with it myself. I have some disabilities. They could surely find a better host. Yesterday, my friend's finger bones showed up on the dash of my car next to my plastic Jesus. Like I said, I have some issues, but I already have 10 good fingers and don't need any backups. Whenever I hear my dog growl in the other room, I know the bones are spinning around in his water dish. It had been well over a decade since I had talked to John about his finger bones. We are both from a very small town, and I get back there once or twice a year. He actually still lives there on the same farm where he grew up, and he farms it when he is not in Washington, D.C. or running around the state or the country. I go out to his house when we are both in town at the same time, and we play foosball, something we both were good at and enjoyed when we were kids. Last time I was there, he brought up the bones. Remember how you always used to nag me about the finger bones, he said, as he mixed us each a drink. Yeah, of course I remember. I said I had seen one of the bones in a display case at a butcher shop in a grocery store just 2 days previous to this discussion. Did I tell you I found out what happened to them? I stopped fiddling with the ice cubes and looked him straight in the face. "Where are they?" I said, trying to keep my voice level. My brother Bobby told me that he was the one who got that stuff out of the grinder, and he buried them out back of the old chicken house. He motioned with his arm in the general direction of the big red barn and a couple other old buildings north of the house. I realized I was staring intently at him, but I couldn't help it. "I think about them when I mow that patch of grass behind the coop," he said. "I don't know exactly where they are, but they are back there somewhere." I thought about the role which those finger bones had played in the past 59 years of my life. "I am not so sure about that," I said. "You and I have tried to move on with our lives. I am not sure if those bones have done the same." "Ah," John said with a sense of finality. He picked up his glass in his left hand, thumb and pinky fingers holding tight to the cold tumbler. "Well, here's to the fingers," he said, and he clicked his glass against mine. "Yes, we all have to move on," I said, knowing that I probably never would. I splashed the Crown Royal into my mouth, hoping that the click that I heard from the moving contents of the glass was caused by ice cubes and nothing else. I did not dare to look. Thank you all very much. I mean that. I really appreciate it. I love this. This is fun. So thanks for coming.